My heartless husband walked out on me at the company gala when I showed him the award speech that included his name. He sneered, "Stop dragging me into your delusions." But that night, when he returned home, his face went pale in fear. I used to think Bennett and I had one of those rare, enduring kinds of love. We met in Atlanta back in 2008 at one of those awkward university mixer events. I'd just wrapped up a project management certification and was trying to get my foot in the tech world. He was halfway through law school at Emory, full of confidence and charm, like he knew he was meant for more. He talked like he'd read every book in the world but still made you feel like your thoughts were worth hearing. He was magnetic. People gravitated toward him. I did, too. We started dating within 2 weeks. Moved in together 6 months later. Married by the end of the year. Looking back, I think I mistook intensity for intimacy. In the early days, we were broke but happy, or at least, I thought we were. We had this little apartment near Piedmont Park, where the AC barely worked and the laundry room was always flooded. I worked days at a call center, nights doing IT support freelance gigs. He studied late into the night, surviving on Red Bull and fast food. He'd tell me I was his anchor. That he couldn't do this without me. And I believed him. When Zara was born in 2010, it felt like we were building something sacred. I still remember her tiny fingers wrapped around mine in the NICU, Bennett standing beside me with that look in his eyes, tenderness and fear, but hope too. I was sure he loved me then. But over the years, the cracks began to show. Bennett got his degree, passed the bar, and landed a job at a mid-sized firm in Buckhead. Suddenly, our world started to shift. He got new suits, a new car, new friends. I was still pushing my way through a male-dominated tech department, where I had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. I didn't mind the hustle, I was good at it. I was making something of myself. But the more I grew, the more he seemed to shrink away. He started missing dinners. Then birthdays. He was always at the office or with clients. He was working hard, he said. For us. For the future. But then came the little things. His phone always locked. That weird habit of clearing his browser history. The sudden gym obsession, new cologne I didn't recognize, the way he flinched when I asked where he'd been. I brought it up once, maybe twice. He'd shut it down so fast I'd end up apologizing. "You're being paranoid, Alara. You always do this when you're stressed." Maybe I was stressed. I had just taken on my biggest professional project yet, a complete restructuring of our department's workflow and systems for one of the company's largest clients. I was drowning in late nights and imposter syndrome. But I was determined. And it paid off. After nearly 2 years of BR-TAL deadlines, I was nominated to receive the company's Innovator of the Year award. They were going to honor me at the gala, the kind with open bars, $200 steak entrees, and local news cameras. I hadn't bought a dress in years. I finally splurged on a navy gown that hugged all the right places. Zara helped me pick it out. She called it Boss Mom Blue. Bennett said he'd be there. I even got his tux dry cleaned. The night of the gala, the ballroom sparkled like a dream. I felt proud walking in, shoulders straight, nerves fluttering. People clinked glasses, murmured congratulations. I hadn't seen Bennett yet. He said he'd meet me there after a work dinner. He showed up 20 minutes before the awards began. Didn't kiss me. Barely looked at me. Just a muttered, "You look fine," as he adjusted his cufflinks and sipped whatever dark drink he'd grabbed from the bar. I handed him the speech I'd worked on for days. Rewrote it over and over, trying to get the tone right. It wasn't long. But it was honest. It ended with a line that said, "And to my husband Bennett, who stood by me through the long nights and longer doubts, you were my calm in the storm." I thought it was beautiful. He read it. Smirked. "You still think I was some big part of this?" he said. My mouth went dry. He looked me dead in the eyes. "Stop dragging me into your delusions, Alara." Then he walked away. I didn't even know what to do. Couldn't cry. Couldn't scream. I just stood there, the speech in my hand, my heart racing, while the announcer called my name to come up. So I walked on stage. I gave the speech. I cut the ending. Didn't mention him. People stood. Clapped. I smiled. Took photos. Drank champagne. But I felt like I was floating above myself the whole time. When I got home that night, around 12:30 a.m., his car was already in the driveway. All the lights were off, except a flicker from Zara's room upstairs. I figured he'd passed out in the bedroom or gone straight to sleep. But when I walked past his office, I noticed his laptop open, glowing in the dark. I stepped in. Quiet. That's when I saw it. A live cam feed. Some woman in a black bra, blowing kisses. She said his name. He didn't notice me right away. When he finally did, it was like all the blood drained from his face. Elara, I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked at him. I had suspected. But seeing it? It knocked the wind out of me. And the worst part? This wasn't just one call. I found others. Messages. Screenshots. Hotel receipts in Nashville, Miami, Charlotte. One of the women sent him a photo from our bedroom. Our bed. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I made calls. To my lawyer. To my boss. I requested a week off work. Took Zara to school myself. I had already been saving quietly for over a year. Something inside me had known. I had backup copies of everything. Even the texts he thought he deleted. By the time he got out of the shower, I was waiting at the kitchen table. I'm filing today, I said. Papers are in the folder. He tried to flip it on me. You're blowing this out of proportion. I just laughed. And I think that's what scared him the most. That I wasn't broken. That I had already accepted it. That I was done. I think the part that stunned him the most was that I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't cry. Not in front of him. I just sat there in my kitchen, in my gala dress from the night before, with a printed folder labeled Bennett, Divorce, waiting for him like I'd been waiting on an overdue meeting. And when I calmly slid that folder across the table, something in his face cracked. Not grief. Not shame. Fear. He started stammering. You're really doing this? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The papers were already signed on my end. My lawyer had them. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a dramatic threat meant to get attention. This was the conclusion of months of gaslighting, cold shoulders, and breadcrumb clues I'd been piecing together in silence. He stood there, towel around his waist, dripping on the hardwood floor, breathing heavy like I'd SCK or punched him. And maybe I had, just not in the way he expected. You don't understand how hard it's been, he started, and I knew it was coming. The script. The excuses. The deflection. I've been under pressure. Work's been insane. You've been so distant lately. I just stared at him. Me. Distant? I'd spent the past year waking up early to make sure Zara was up and fed before school. Coming home late from meetings to cook him dinner he never complimented. Organizing his doctor appointments, calling the insurance when he couldn't be bothered. I even hemmed the damn tux he wore to the gala. The same night he walked out on me in front of 300 people. And now I was the distant one? He tried to sit, like this was going to be a conversation. But I stood and walked upstairs. I was done having conversations with someone who had stopped hearing me years ago. The next few days were a whirlwind. I took time off work. I explained what I could to Zara, who was smarter than either of us gave her credit for. She'd seen things, heard things. She didn't say much. Just asked, "Are we gonna be okay?" And I told her, yes. We are. She didn't ask about him. Not once. Bennett moved into a short-term rental a week later. Some soulless condo near Atlantic Station, all glass and cold metal. The kind of place that looks good in pictures but feels like a hotel. He tried texting, calling, leaving voicemails that ranged from pitiful to passive-aggressive. One of them said, "I just don't get how you could throw this all away so fast." Fast? I'd been holding the pieces of our marriage together like a dam with cracks. Just because it finally burst didn't mean it was sudden. The hardest part was keeping myself together at work. I'd been promoted after the Gala, VP of Strategy. It was the position I'd dreamed about for years. But every meeting, every new initiative, every compliment from upper management felt hollow. Like I was wearing someone else's success while grieving a version of my life that didn't exist anymore. There were moments when I'd walk into the bathroom at the office, lock the stall door, and just breathe into my palms for 60 seconds. But no one saw that part. Everyone saw the polished Alara. The one with the sharp heels and clean presentations. Not the one who went home and sobbed into her pillow after Zara fell asleep. Not the one who had to throw out her husband's toothbrush and couldn't figure out why that made her cry harder than the infidelity. Bennett, meanwhile, kept digging his grave. Turns out, the cam girl wasn't the only one. One of the women he'd been seeing worked at his firm, an intern, fresh out of undergrad, who had no idea he was married with a child. She found out when she saw photos on his social media. He'd hidden them, but not well enough. She reached out to me. Apologized. She was shaken, embarrassed. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I would never. I'm so sorry." I told her it wasn't her fault. She wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last. But she was the one who took screenshots of everything. Messages. Plans. Discussions about how cold I was, how he felt trapped, how he was waiting for the right moment to leave me. That moment, it turns out, was never going to come, not until I forced it. And those screenshots? My lawyer loved them. Zara started therapy around this time. I wasn't sure if she needed it, but I knew I needed someone professional to tell me what to do next. She didn't say much in the first few sessions. Just curled into the couch and picked at the sleeves of her hoodie. But on the third visit, her therapist told me she'd drawn a picture of our house. 2 stick figures. Me and her. No Bennett. "Where's Daddy?" the therapist had asked. "He lives somewhere else now," Zara had said. "It's quieter." Those words gutted me. But they also freed me. About 6 weeks after the Gala, my company asked me to speak at a Women in Tech conference in Chicago. I almost said no. I was emotionally drained, still raw. But then I thought, why not? I could use the time away. I asked Zara if she was okay with me being gone for 3 days. She asked if I'd bring her back deep dish pizza and a snow globe. That was a yes. So I went. The speech went viral, not TikTok viral, but corporate viral. A few clips got picked up by a business podcast. My inbox exploded. Offers. Invitations. A mentorship program wanted me to be a lead speaker. A local university wanted to add me as a guest lecturer. For the first time, people weren't just listening to me, they were hearing me. I was becoming someone I admired. Not just a wife, or a mother, or a woman fighting to be heard. But someone standing on her own. And Bennett? He wasn't doing so great. One of the partners at his firm heard about the intern situation. The firm quietly asked him to resign. Personal conduct unbecoming. That's how they phrased it. He called me that night. "I'm ruined," he said, like I was supposed to feel bad. But I didn't. I felt done. I didn't return his call that night. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed in Chicago, phone buzzing in my hand, his name flashing across the screen like a dying firefly. Bennett, mobile. I watched it blink twice, then disappear. He left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. He was lost. He was sorry. He didn't recognize himself anymore. And somehow, all of it, his affair, his lies, his downfall, was tangled in the idea that I'd changed. That I had become unreachable. Like my growth was a betrayal. But the truth? I hadn't changed. I had returned to myself. And now that he was spiraling, he wanted to drag me back into the hole he dug. I refused. I took a long shower, let the steam cloud the mirror, and reminded myself, you are not responsible for his collapse. Only your own rebuilding. When I got home from Chicago, Zara ran to me like she hadn't seen me in years. She clung to my waist and said, I missed you so much. It was boring here without you. That told me everything I needed to know. Bennett hadn't called to check in on her. Not once. The legal process was slow, like they always are. Paperwork, delays, filings, more paperwork. Bennett tried to push back on certain assets, our house, Zara's education account, my retirement contributions. Said I owed him for supporting me through the hard years. My lawyer nearly laughed in the deposition. She pulled out itemized statements, receipts, bank logs showing I'd contributed more than double his share over the years. I hadn't even realized it myself. When you're in survival mode for a decade, you don't always track the math. You just pay the bills, buy the groceries, and hope no one asks how you're doing. But it was all there. On paper. The proof of my labor. The final nail was the email. A single forwarded message from Bennett's company account, sent to one of his flings, joking about riding Alara's success to the top. It was vile. Condescending. Arrogant. He forgot to delete it from his sent folder. When my lawyer presented it during arbitration, he actually turned gray. Not even red. Just pale, dead gray. He finally stopped fighting after that. We got the house. Full custody. No spousal support from me. He wasn't entitled. I'd spent years being the backbone of a marriage where I was treated like a crutch. And now the court saw it, too. Zara and I started fresh. I got rid of the old furniture, the couch where Bennett used to fall asleep with his phone face down. The dining table where he'd eaten dinner in silence for years. I even repainted the walls. Soft green in the kitchen. Warm terracotta in the hall. Our home had always felt cold, like we were just passing through. Now it felt lived in. Loved. Zara started opening up more in therapy. She drew more, laughed more. One afternoon, she asked if we could make a divorce cake. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We ended up baking one, chocolate with strawberry frosting. She wrote "Just Us Now" in crooked pink letters across the top. We ate it on the porch together with plastic forks. She said it tasted like peace. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were nights when I still checked my phone, half expecting Bennett's name. Muscle memory is hard to break. I'd roll over, stare at the empty space beside me, and wonder how I ever shared a bed with someone so emotionally absent. But over time, that space stopped feeling empty. It started feeling mine. Work kept me busy. I was asked to join a board for a local women in tech nonprofit. I said yes. It felt good to pour into something outside myself. Something that gave other women the tools I never had when I started. The conference invitations kept coming. I started writing again, articles, blog posts, short op-eds about career, motherhood, betrayal, and rebuilding. One of them got picked up by Fast Company. A week later, a book agent emailed me asking if I'd ever considered turning my story into a memoir. I hadn't. Not seriously. But maybe. It didn't feel like vanity anymore. It felt like survival. Like legacy. Bennett, for what it's worth, tried. He tried to play the part of the apologetic ex, tried to show up for scheduled visits with Zara. But the damage was done. She was polite with him. Quiet. Reserved. She'd come home and go straight to her room, headphones in, expression blank. When I asked her how it went, she'd shrug and say, "It was okay." Eventually, even he noticed. One night, he called and said, "I don't think she wants to see me anymore." I said, "She doesn't trust you. That doesn't change because you show up now and then." He got defensive, of course. Told me I was poisoning her against him. That I was making myself out to be the hero. I didn't take the bait. I just said, "You did that all on your own." There's something about losing everything that makes you see what you still have. I had my daughter. My mind. My career. My voice. And now that I wasn't using all my energy to hold together a broken marriage, I had space for other things, music, books, even quiet. Just sitting on the porch at night with a glass of wine, listening to the crickets, feeling the breeze through my hair, it was more peaceful than any vacation we ever took. And I wasn't alone. Not really. I started making new friends. Real ones. Women from work, neighbors I'd only waved at before. I hosted dinner once, just 5 women around a table with mismatched plates and 2 bottles of cheap red wine. We ended up talking for 5 hours. About everything. About nothing. One of them, Rena, a widowed accountant in her 50s, looked at me and said, "You know, you look lighter now." And I realized I felt it too. The months rolled on, and the gaps in our lives where Bennett used to be became filled with something better, space. Not loneliness, space. Space to grow, to breathe, to dream without needing anyone's approval. Zara started smiling more. She joined the school's art club, started showing me her drawings again, complex little scenes, soft colors, characters with speech bubbles that said things like "it's okay to start over." Her therapist told me she was processing better than most kids in these situations. Not because she wasn't hurt, but because the home she had now was calm, safe. Predictable in a way children need. Bennett's presence, when it happened, was more of a disturbance than a connection. He tried to fake interest in her life, asked surface-level questions, bought her expensive sneakers, tried to bribe his way into relevance. But kids know. They always know when someone's heart isn't in it. Eventually, she stopped going altogether. "I don't want to pretend," she told me one night. "He's just a guy now." That sentence stayed with me for days. Professionally, things exploded, in the best way. That article in Fast Company led to a speaking tour. Then a podcast appearance. Then a TEDx invitation. I never planned for any of this. I wasn't chasing the spotlight. But people kept asking me to share what I'd been through. Women especially. It was like I'd cracked open something quiet in them, something they'd never had permission to voice. When I stood on stage at TEDx Atlanta, I looked out at hundreds of faces. I told them the truth, not just about my marriage or my career, but about losing yourself in the role of holding it all together, and how sometimes your survival is your success story. That speech got over 1 million views. The revenge, though? That came quietly. Elegantly. See, Bennett had been trying to launch his own consulting practice after being let go from the firm. He tried to drum up clients, leaned hard on his network, name-dropped anyone who'd ever sat next to him at a lunch meeting. The problem was, the professional world, especially in Atlanta, talks. People knew what he'd done. Maybe not every detail, but enough to make them wary. His reputation couldn't catch up with the version of himself he wanted to sell. Then came the icing on the cake. My company, where I'd now been promoted to executive director, was invited to sit on a city-led board for tech innovation and legal ethics. They were assembling a committee to oversee community projects involving law, tech startups, and AI privacy. Guess who submitted a proposal for a seat on that board? Bennett. Guess who had to reject it? Me. Well, not me, personally. I didn't sign the rejection email. That came from our legal department. But I was in the meeting. I saw his name on the submission. I reviewed his qualifications. His proposal was decent, but shallow. No real community outreach. No innovation. No measurable strategy. But mostly, he had burned bridges. Mine included. I didn't veto him. I didn't rage or make it personal. I simply presented the stronger applicants. The women. The small business owners. The community organizers who'd been quietly doing the work while Bennett had been busy self-destructing behind hotel curtains. The vote was unanimous. He didn't make the cut. A few days later, I received a message. An email from a burner address I recognized immediately. You win. Is that what you wanted? I didn't respond. Because I hadn't won. I had freed myself. There was a difference. The final touch, the true, satisfying closure, came almost a year to the day after the gala. Zara and I were at a community festival in Grant Park, grabbing ice cream, laughing about a llama that had nearly spit on a group of teenagers. We turned the corner, and there he was. Bennett. Alone. Wearing a wrinkled button-up shirt, face worn, eyes glassy. He saw us. Zara stiffened beside me. She didn't reach for him. Didn't wave. She just looked at me and said, "Can we go?" And I said, "Of course." He didn't follow. Just stood there as we walked away. And that quiet moment of being chosen by my daughter, of knowing I'd protected her, of seeing him left behind in the place he built for himself, was better than any courtroom win, any scandal, any screaming match. It was silent. And it was complete. Now, a year and a half out, the award from that gala sits in a glass case at work. The plaque doesn't say his name anymore. I had it redone. It reads, "To Alara Winslow. For courage, resilience, and excellence." Sometimes, people ask me if I ever want to date again. Maybe someday. But for now? I'm in love with my life. My real life. The one I fought for, rebuilt, and reclaimed without cruelty, without chaos. Just quiet, persistent truth.